So, I'm here today with Bill Oliver and Max Nofziger, two icons of Austin since I've been here, and that's a long time. So, Bill, tell me a little bit of your history. What got you into music and SOS?
Well, let's see. Mark Twain, Chuck Berry, the Briar Grove Ditch, and Max Nofziger.
He's responsible for a lot of trouble.
Well, I don't know. Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
And Max Nofziger, how many times were you a councilman in Austin?
Well, 9 years, 3 terms. We served three-year terms at that point. So, 87, I got elected, and I served till 96. I met Bill in 81. That was my second campaign for city council. And I think that's when I met you. I think I'd heard about you or otherwise kind of knew of you, but I asked you to help me campaign and play a benefit. And as I recall, I might have this wrong, but you were helping Larry Doozer. At the time, Larry was running in my race, and I think you played both of our gigs. Is that right? I don't know.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? You just played for Larry? Oh, yeah. He just played for me? Well, Larry went on to win. He should have played. Maybe you should have played for Larry. I don't know. But
No, Max.
he went on to win that race
I wasn't fond of him.
and served just one term. But anyhow, that's when we got together. And then let me just show you this quickly while I'm talking here about Bill. Because this is one of my birthday parties. We did at Liberty Lunch, the late departed Liberty Lunch. And right here it says, entertainment by the first band, Bill Oliver and the Otter Space Band. And that's him, and that's still his band. Well, here's to set the record straight, David, for the archives. I ran for city council 79 and 81. So 79 and 81, I ran for city council, place 1. I ran for mayor in 83 and 85. And then I won to city council in 87. So I had 2 council races, 2 mayor's races, and then I won. Which, since I'm talking here, nobody's ever done that in the history of Austin, get beat 4 times.
And come back for
and
more.
then win, because usually by the time you get beat 2 or 3 times, you kind of get the clue. You
Yep.
know, you get the hint and quit or do something different. But I knew I was gaining ground with every defeat.
Right. And you were very influential in that mayoral runoff.
Well, that's
Which is
where,
the $1 million
is this
match.
the introduction to your song?
Just,
Oh,
could be. I don't know.
okay. Well, Bill wrote a song in 1983, inspired by me and the race. $1 Million Max. I guess that's about me,
I
right?
suppose so.
And
Of
it's
course
about,
it is.
you know, in that race, I got 10% of the vote, so it was my big breakthrough. In my city council
Right.
races, I got like 1% of the vote. And so I got 10% of the vote. That was enough to create a runoff between Leberman and Mullen. And I called him Mullerman or Lebermullen, just to confuse the issue and make sure everybody realized they were like the same guy, and I was the choice. So if you wanted a choice, I was it. So anyhow, I created a runoff, and they had to, in the runoff, spend another $500,000. Hence, the song.
When the votes had all come in, it was Max who had the biggest grin. Ron and Lowell had drawn blanks and would have to go back and face their banks.
Asking for more money.
How much money did you spend on that campaign?
And that one, I think I spent $5,000.
There we go.
And how much money did your opponents spend?
Well, they spent $500,000 together,
Yeah.
which is about right, $250 for a mayor's race at that time, which now is a common number for a city council race. But yeah, $5,000. And when I won in 87, we spent $30,000, and my opponents spent over $200,000. And I won, and I got that $30,000 through musicians like Bill performing benefits for me. You know, I was a flower selling hippie So I couldn't raise money in the conventional way, that is, go to the big guys and say, hey, I'm going to get elected to the city council, I need $5,000. That wasn't working for me, so I was a musician, and a lot of my friends were musicians, and so they got together and put on benefit after benefit for me, and we rolled up $30,000, which was enough to win the race against the big guys. That's a little known fact too. I want to, for the record, talk about just briefly, is that I had to beat the Democratic machine, that is Peck Young, who controlled all the city council elections.
I used to deliver his mail.
He got a lot of mail, I'll bet.
Yes, he did.
In that era, he picked the candidates, he ran the campaigns, he arranged the money. So I beat his candidate, Sam Griswold, who was a very nice man. I got to know Sam and really liked him, nice guy. I beat him, and then I beat the developer candidate, Gilbert Martinez. And so I had to beat two dragons, two Goliaths, to get into city council. People don't realize that, but that was a huge effort. That's why it took so long. And that's why I have to thank Bill and the Otter Space Band and all these other musicians I want to mention who helped me get elected, not through just the 87 campaign when I won, but some of these guys signed on in 81. That's when Bill started helping me.
And some of them actually had followings with that that would pay tickets.
Well, Steve Fromholz.
There we go.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Steve Fromholz was one of those, and Steve got on board early. I mean, they talk about the bandwagon. Steve helped me build the bandwagon in the early years that later more and more people jumped on. But here's a good one about Steve. Okay, this was at Steamboat, another dearly missed venue, and a lot of, as you'll see as we go through these, a lot of my events were at places that no longer exist, only in the fond memories of old Austinites. So Steamboat put on this event, Musicians for Max, and Steve Fromholz was our host, $5 admission. So these bands were Extreme Heat, The Crazy World of Arthur Brown. You remember him?
Wow! Wow! Oh, sorry.
Hellfire, right?
Yeah.
The Life Size, Austin All-Stars, Zulu Time, Esther's Follies, Flashback, Alamo Choir, The Fur Trappers, great band there, Hell's Cafe, Trick Tracks, Body Politic, Mandy Mercier, Tim Henderson, Ty Gavin, and the Celebrities, Alan Damron, Teddy and the Rockabilly All-Stars, Stephen Doster, the Screamin' Cat Daddies, Lillian Stanfield, and Julie Burrell. That's at one show, $5 to see all that.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was something. And then here's another one. Let me show you this one quickly. Jerry Jeff Walker was a huge help to me. Jerry Jeff Walker played several shows for me, appeared in 1987 in a commercial for me, a TV spot that we did down at Auditorium Shores. Jerry Jeff was a jogger, so he showed up in his jogging suit, and we walked along the trail talking politics, saving Barton Springs and so on, which he was very interested in. And then he played a very intimate house concert for me to raise the money to air the ad.
Oh, wow.
Wow. That's
Jerry.
comprehensive.
Yeah, he was the whole package, and including his wife, Susan. Actually, Susan was a big
There we go.
motivator. Do you remember Nadine Eckhart?
Huh?
Did you know Nadine?
I did not.
Anyhow, Nadine had a cafe in East Austin for a while, but she was a real political activist. Her daughter is now the state senator, Sarah.
Wow.
And Nadine helped me early on, and she's a good buddy with Susan Walker. So those two ladies got together and cooked up some support for me. And Jerry Jeff, dear man, just passed away, not even a year ago. Okay, and here's another one. This is a good show at Santiago's, which was just off of 6th Street. I used to play a gig there at Santiago's. Timbuktu, that's a great story about your folks in Austin.
One of my favorite
musicians.
bands back then was Timbuktu.
Well, and they appeared with Marcia Ball and maybe Bill Oliver. We don't know. But Bill didn't make the poster, if that's the
That's
case.
right.
But it might have been a whole
Noticed.
different show.
Yeah.
But anyhow,
Different
Timbuk 3 had to go on early because they were going right to the airport to fly to New York City to appear on
Letterman, Johnny Carson.
one of
Well,
those.
yeah.
One of those shows. So they were hot at the time.
Yeah.
So
Oh, not just high, like my grandmother
Not just
thought.
high,
My
but they
stepmother
were-
thought, no, it's okay.
they were hot. Oh, and here's a bumper sticker. I think this was 83, where we had this bumper sticker that says Max for Mayor. And cleverly designed in there is a musical note that your close observers may notice doesn't really exist in music. So,
Whole half note.
isn't that what that is? It was a
A whole half
16th.
note. Do the math.
It's
Let's-
an eighth whole note or
Half note. Or something.
Yeah.
something. So somebody got very creative with designing this bumper sticker, which might make it a collector's item.
that
I don't
is
know,
some
but it's the
serious trivia.
unicorn.
Yeah,
It's the unicorn of notes.
I was going to mention that, but don't want to be tacky. Wow.
So anyhow, these are just some of the musicians, and Bill has some more, I think, don't you? In one of your posters, some of the musicians that helped me, and I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you, Bill, since you're here representing, let's say, the entire music community on this occasion, representing all these folks that helped me get elected. Stevie Ray Vaughan, I want to mention Stevie Ray Vaughan,
wow.
83. We asked him if he could play a show for us. He said, Max, I'm sorry, I love you, but I'm going on tour with David Bowie. And how about if I write you a $500 check instead? Okay, well, I'd never received a $500 check in my political career. In 83, that was a huge amount of money.
Yep.
A big contribution for me at that time was $100. Most of them were like 10 and 20 or 5. And so, Stevie Ray wrote me my first huge $500 campaign contribution in 83. And so that lent a lot of credibility to me, of course. And sleep at the wheel, played my birthday parties, Fromholz played many events. I remember one at Liberty Lunch. You know, they didn't really have a roof on their place.
Yeah.
And this was in the winter or early spring, and it was cold. And Steve said, I can barely move my fingers. You want me to go on? And I said, yeah, if you will. The show has to go on, you know. So it was like really cold. But he went on and played. He was such a trooper.
Well, if there was an audience,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
they're standing around.
There were some shows where there wasn't much of an audience either, but you know that's the music business in Austin too sometimes. So Bill, let me ask Bill a question while he's sitting right here. How'd you get involved in environmental stuff early on?
Well, I was naturalist selection. I was always interested in it's either my line is either Chuck Berry or Smokey Bear, and I couldn't decide, and I hated the "What are you going to do?" thing. Quit asking me that. I don't know what I'm going to do next week. But so that's kind of the dual track. I never thought that show business was going to be a real thing. It seemed like that was well covered. But the other was very interesting to me, nature, and putting them together was eventually pretty easy to do.
Well, that turned out to be your niche, didn't
Austin
it?
Community College Biology Department. I was writing songs in the margin, and I think I lowered my grade point a little bit, but that was a real eye opener for the political angle involvement, environmental.
Bill, is legendary for coming down to city council meetings and performing, and he did some great tunes down there, especially that condominium song. I don't know if you brought your guitar, but if you did, you might want to play your guitar and do the song that made you rich and famous, the condominium song.
Oh, that one.
Well, unless you want to do the $1 Million Max, I don't know if you even know that. That was so long ago.
I do not recall.
You said
a
you didn't know
melody
the
for
melody.
that. I don't recall a melody.
Maybe you could
for
just
that.
shout out the lyrics, like a rap. Do kind of a
Yeah,
rap.
it might have been a talking thing. I don't know. variety of those songs were one-offs, you know, for an event.
But before I forget, I want to say that, you know, one of the things I did as a council member to support the music scene, since all these musicians supported my efforts to get into office, one of the things I did was create the Austin Music Commission, which led to the Live Music Capital of the World and the Music Industry Loan Program and a whole bunch of other good stuff like that. One thing else was that we started the music at the council chambers, where before every council meeting, we declare it to be a musician's day in Austin, talk about how wonderful they are, invite them to play live a song or two, and the idea was that we would start off every council meeting with music and a moment of unity and coming together and sharing the music, you know, and starting before we go off and take our different positions on all these issues. We start from a place of oneness and let the music bring us together.
A kumbaya
A
moment.
kumbaya for every council meeting, and it was so funny when I put this on the agenda. And Ronnie Reynolds was not supportive. He was a council member, and he said, "Well, I'm not really interested in doing that." And Mayor Todd at the time, Bruce Todd, said, "Well, Ronnie, what do you want to have like a chip making demonstration, a computer chip making? We can't really do that here. Music is much more suited to what we're trying to do."
But that was chip making.
And so I thought that was the funniest thing. Anyhow, a good one, Mayor Todd. But anyhow, so for all these years, I think that started in '92, we've declared it to be a musician's day and have them record. And I think, did this finally happen to you?
What's that?
That you got to be the musician of the moment?
No, I've never had that. That's never come up.
What?
I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, we're gonna," but never happened.
What an oversight.
Yeah.
Well, I was there a lot. It was usually critical. So I was trying to think of what would I play to bring them together. That would be a switch because it's usually
Yeah.
More of a good trouble song.
You're really, usually. Well, who's your council
Would I do
member?
something serious? Would I do something silly, snarky? Would I do a medley?
So,
Council stuff.
what's that git fiddle doing in your lap?
Well, hey, so the public hearings were kind of fun. They don't always work everywhere. So Austin was one of those bubbles that we had that, you know, doesn't work everywhere. You try, and it doesn't always work anymore anyway. But I did one on air, a Zoom hearing for the Parks Board. You know, the Barton Springs they're doing a lot of serious expanding, and they're trying to put in the snack bar is the issue now.
Oh, with alcohol.
They're trying beer and
Yeah.
wine. And so we thought that was kind of a bad idea. Not such a great idea. It's funny considering the source. Sorry about that, but not at the pool. So it was, that was my latest last week. And it was, every hour is happy hour at Barton Springs Eternal. You don't need beer or whiskey sours at Barton Springs Eternal. In the quest to squeeze more bucks, I'd rather see more ducks than drunks. There ain't no high like when you dive in Barton Springs Eternal. Our philosopher heroes might be shocked Barton drinks eternal. What they see from Philosopher's Rock at Barton drinks eternal. They came to talk and swim and think and not to holler, cuss, and drink. It's Philosopher's Rock, not Philosopher Schlocked. And Barton drinks eternal. Last one. Could be South Austin's favorite bar. Barton drinks eternal. From the car to the bar, past the lifeguards, Barton drinks eternal. When the first drunk drowns, after the sinking, the cops will ask, what were they drinking? We'll have to ask, what were we thinking? Barton drinks eternal. Every hour is happy hour. Barton Springs Eternal.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a
All
good
right.
one.
Woo! Short.
That's really good. Wow. Been doing that for 40 years, huh?
You know, I think so. Wow. the condo. Excuse me.
Yeah.
This is 40 going on 40 years old. Live Oak Records, same street you still live on.
Yeah.
South Austin, and that was a condo
me
Barton
look at
Springs
that.
Eternal and Heartstrings, which was a ballad, a duet. Started off a duet with John Inman and Akira Endo,
Wow.
was the leader of the Austin Symphony, the violinist.
Yeah.
Really?
I know John Inman. I've actually jammed with him once. Small world, but I wouldn't want to paint it.
Gosh, who did your art here?
Priest.
Isn't that amazing?
I was trying to
Oh,
get
yeah.
Priest to do one of these things too.
Drawings by Michael
that would
Priest.
be Michael Priest, yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of work on this.
Yes, it was. That
May I
was,
see
that was
it?
several dinners. That was the way to get things done, have Michael come over
Bill,
for dinner.
you were young.
I w-
I'm glad I knew you when you were young.
Yeah, just 40, 50 years ago.
Wow,
Time flies, doesn't it, when you're having fun?
that's great.
It
Are
is
you-
great.
Are you going to do that kind of song off of
Oh,
there?
I'm sorry. Yeah, well, it was a contemporary urban monster story, and it was so much more innocent at the time. I don't have any idea what happened, but we thought they were kind of silly. If they just called them townhouses, Max, I would have left it alone. But no! They had to go with condominium. Everybody. Condominium. Thank you very much. There's so many of them. It's a long. Can't get rid of them. Concrete and aluminum. Asbestos and linoleum. Discharging petroleum. Almost there. You guys kind of tired out there. Moratorium.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, big finish. Condo chorus.
Wow, inspired. I'm glad you worked that moratorium in there, you know?
You know, they've made it almost impossible to do a moratorium now.
Oh, you couldn't do a moratorium now.
But right, I'm just saying that I don't know how they did it back then. A lot of people watching this have no idea what that means. But they put a moratorium on development for a period of time in Austin.
Isn't that amazing?
It's absolutely, this is a property rights state. And the big property owners, they didn't like that a bit.
You know how that happened?
No,
Let me tell you
tell
how
me.
that happened.
Tell me.
Okay, well, let's start with my reelection in 1990. I got reelected to city council, and right away was the all-night city council meeting, at which you were there, no doubt performed, and that's legendary. I think that was June 7th, 1990. So boom, I get reelected. All-night city council meeting. I mean, literally all night. Hundreds of people were there. It was the most emotional thing. And going in to that meeting, as I counted the support on the council, that development was going to pass on a 4-3 vote. After all night.
The Moffat.
Yeah.
Jim Bob.
Yeah. And after all night hearing from the people, it was unanimously opposed to it. So it was like, wow, the power of the people. Turn that thing around. And then, so what happened then is after that show of force, I had this inspiration. I lived out on, just off East Riverside. and was walking on the road and thinking, how do we do this? How do we protect the water? And I thought, okay, you're a council member, you make policy. What if the policy was you can build your development, but it can't pollute the water? So based on the idea that nobody has the right to pollute the people's water, okay? So that's my job, protect the water. So we need an ordinance that says, build your development, but it can't pollute the water. Okay, so I put that on the agenda, and we talked about it. It passed 7-0, because who's going to
Oppose that.
Who's going to come out for dirty water? Nobody. So, okay, so in about 2 or 3 weeks, I followed up with, well, then we need to direct staff to create such an ordinance. So we have a policy, a broad policy, what we want to do. Now we need the ordinance to make it happen. So direct staff to do the ordinance. That passed on a 5-2 vote. Then is a matter of, okay, we don't want all these developers rushing in to file their projects before the ordinance gets written. So we need a moratorium on development. And so I put that on the agenda. That passed on a 4-3 vote.
Wow.
So the support narrowed from like the broad policy to we need an ordinance, okay, to we need to stop development while we do the ordinance. That's how that happened.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. It would not happen in this Austin, but that goes to show you how different things were when the environmentalists controlled City Hall. I mean, it's hard to imagine now, but we controlled City Hall and could do that sort of stuff. And then that's what touched off the whole SOS movement, was because that was, staff came up with a non-degradation ordinance. I mean, that was the first zero pollution non-degradation ordinance. Ronnie Reynolds messed with that and got the staff to come up with something different, and we were going no, and that's when SOS got organized and went back to a true non-degradation ordinance. So that touched off that whole thing, which culminated then in, 92 with the election in support of the SOS ordinance. And then in 93, I got reelected to my third term. Bridget Shea came on the city council and Jackie Goodman. So that was like boom, boom, boom. And my election, I got 52,000 votes, which is the most by any white guy in the history of the city.
Wow.
So I'm the number one white guy in the history of the city. Well, and let me put an asterisk by that. I haven't checked lately to see. Somebody might have eclipsed that. It'd have to be the mayor, since we've gone to single-member districts. Nobody's going to get there. But some of the mayors might have gotten over 52,000 votes. But the last I looked, I was number 3 all time. John Trevino got more votes in one election, and Sally Shipman got more votes in another. But 52,000 votes. So anyhow, I got elected in a huge landslide that brought in Bridget and Jackie on my coattails, and nailed down the environmental majority on the city council. Kaboom!
It's one of those things that it couldn't happen today.
No. Was that late 90s, do you know?
No, early to mid. I just saw how money worked, and I was on TV 3 times fighting that.
Well, that's interesting, because one of the things we did to support the SOS ordinance was the city would join SOS in lawsuits. We were there as a partner in the lawsuits. When Kirk Watson got elected mayor, the city stopped doing that. So it was SOS on its own, which, of course, puts them in a weaker situation, because the city has deep pockets and can sustain a lot longer. Bruce Todd, when he was the mayor, I think he got elected in 92 or 93. Anyhow, he wanted to stop the city from joining those lawsuits. And the council majority of environmentalists said, no, we're going to keep doing that. So I wondered if it was after.
I think it was after that.
It was after that.
Mm-hmm.
See, so that made a big difference in how the city handled its environmental issues when we stopped partnering with SOS on lawsuits.
See, I didn't know that, and that
enforcing
might
the SOS.
I'm pretty sure that was after the city stopped funding the legal fights.
The state was well into coming back against, circling Austin all along on that. So
And it's only intensified.
that pressure was, that was coming. That was
Well,
well underway then by.
Well, and the city got sued. I mean, if you remember, that went to the Texas Supreme Court
Right. Oh,
over
okay.
the SOS ordinance.
Yeah.
I testified in court on that. And I remember the American Statesman, which was not a friend to SOS. They were a friend to the developers. And the Statesman, I would read their editorials, and they would just crow about, wait till this Supreme Court decision comes and puts Austin in their place. Wait till this happens. Well, the Republican Texas Supreme Court voted 9-0 or 11-0, however many of them there are, to uphold SOS. It was so solid. They supported it. And that's one of the things that I fault the Watson Council, Jackie and Darrell and Watson, whoever was on that council, they did not follow up with that Supreme Court victory to strengthen the SOS ordinance. Because when we adopted that ordinance at the city council chambers, a lot of people, Bill Bunch, Bridget, maybe you, I don't know, a lot of people were going, okay, this is a beginning. We think that this is going to be strong enough to protect the springs, but we're not sure. So this is not the end. We need more protection. But when we got the Supreme Court decision which said, yeah, you can do this. This is well within your purview and your responsibility. They did not even try to strengthen SOS ordinance and didn't do a thing to strengthen it. Big mistake.
Was that because of the mayor at the time?
That was because
Lack of leader or leaders leading the other way?
Well, that was because I think the mayor at the time, Kirk Watson, had his eye on running for a statewide office. And, it's hard for an Austin elected official to get anywhere in the state because they're liberal, coming out of Austin.
Yep.
Has a bad reputation. So Watson was not going to do anything that made him look like he was in that camp. In fact, he was going to do what he could to help the developers.
45.
And that's why Austin took off like it did. One of the things that, and I don't want to go off too bad on that council in Watson, but one of the things they did, because this is relative to SOS, is they made a deal with the LCRA to go into the retail water business. LCRA was a water wholesaler. They controlled the flow on the lake chain, and they sold water in big batches. Watson and that city council gave the LCRA $1 billion to go into the retail water business so they could provide water to Bee Cave, all those communities to the west. That's what happened to start all that development to the west over the aquifer in the recharge zones. And because the citizens of Austin had started to say no to expanding water lines and sewer lines to the west, we started to win those elections. And that's how you controlled that.
Absolutely.
We said, no, we don't want to fund that. We're not going to spend our money to do that. So that city council, Watson, that city council found a way around that by giving the LCRA $1 billion. And the pretext was water rights. We got some more water rights. So that was what we got for the $1 billion. But what really they got was a way for the developers to get water to develop western Travis County and out in the hill country.
Yep.
And putting that pressure on SOS. And so not only did we give them $1 billion to do that, but part of the package deal, like a baseball trade, we sent 2 players to be named later. Jesus Garza, the city manager, went to work for the LCRA, and Randy Goss, who was head of our water department, went to work for the LCRA. So we really set them up in the water business because the citizens of Austin were saying, we don't want to provide that development in the hill country, over the recharge zone. But they found a way around that. Bad business, Bill.
Money trumps
Boy,
public interest.
yeah.
It's just sad, and it's getting worse. I mean, we have recharge zone from 1626 to 1826. Captain Ben McCullough recharges this particular area of the Barton Springs Edwards. And it used to be Rutherford Ranch. Most of that land was one ranch, and now they're developing it.
So this is a birthday party at the Ritz. Remember the Ritz? Jim Franklin started the Ritz
Absolutely.
downtown on 6th Street. And this was a benefit. Tomas Ramirez Trio. Remember those guys?
Yeah.
Hot sax. And the comedy In the West. That was a great long-running theater production.
Ritz, at the Ritz, man, that's the place.
At the Ritz. Esther's Follies. Jason Williams with, he was a Tuna. Yeah. And then Jimmy Gilmore, Flatlanders.
Yes.
Jimmy Dale Gilmore. Jimmy Dale used to tell me every time I'd run into him, he'd say, you know, I only ever played 2 benefits for politicians in my life, you and Ann Richards, and you both won.
What good company to be in.
So he's got a good record about playing benefits for politicians. And this says the show will be hosted by John Henry Falk, dearly departed legend
Yes.
of Austin, legend of South Austin especially, and such a big help to me in my campaigns. And Bill, I want you to hold up that one poster I know you brought about the lignite campaign, because John Henry hosted that one too. Did you bring that one? It's got that's it, with the crying cow on it.
Oh, here it is.
Yeah. And thank you. And Steve Fromholz played at that one. Bill Oliver played at that one. You remember that one?
Yeah.
What an all-star lineup that was. Marion Small, dear friend of mine, and Lynn Adele and Johnny Webster. John Henry Falk. This was at Soap Creek Saloon, the last incarnation of Soap Creek Saloon when it was down on South Congress.
Yes.
And this was in 1983. And this was the anti-lignite campaign. The
Right.
city
Right.
had this plan to go into partnership with the LCRA out near Bastrop and strip mine lignite,
Yep.
which was a weak kind of coal, and then burn it out there. And a group of activists in 1983, Jane Morris, the Carter brothers, Bill and David Carter, Margaret Campbell from Bastrop County Lignite Watch, and a bunch of other folks, they recruited me. This was after the 1983 mayor's race, where I came in third and created, got some good support. They recruited me to come help them because this election was going to be in the fall, October of '83. And so this was a great campaign of hippies on bicycles. That's what Peck Young derided us
Nobody
in the
called
press as these are just a bunch of hippies on bicycles, because that's how we went around to all the meetings to talk about whether or not the city should be partners in this lignite project. And Peck was leading the charge for the lignite plant, and the whole city council supported, including our friend Roger Duncan, who was the leading environmentalist at the time. He supported the lignite plant. The Chamber of Commerce, the newspaper, all the political establishment was in favor of the lignite plant. And on the election came, and we hippies on bicycles and our musical friends, John Henry Falk, Steve Fromholz, Bill Oliver, we beat them. And that was of critical importance because that was the first time in Austin that we turned away from fossil fuels and said no to fossil fuels. So that was a key turning point. And then the city followed up this defeat by saying, okay, well, if we're not going to build this lignite plant, we're going to need 4 coal-fired plants by the year 2002. This was in '83. And I went, that is such a load of crap. That can't be true. 4 huge coal-fired plants. And I said, no, that can't happen. Well, they put on the ballot in 1985, a bond election, to buy land out by Weberville, buy 2,000 acres to site these coal plants on. And I formed a group called Austin Clean Energy to campaign against it. And I said, it's $20 million. We don't need to do that. We're never going to do that. We need solar power. We need conservation instead. And that was on the ballot with like 25 other bond propositions that all passed. I think everything passed. The only close one was the coal plant land, passed 52 to 48. So that was very close. So then when I got elected in 1987, that was the plan, to build 4 coal plants on that land. When I got elected in 87, everybody knew that plan was done, that was not going to happen. And so from this 83 victory, that led to turning down the coal plants, which opened the door for wind power, which I did on the city council, more solar power, more conservation. So this was a huge turning point, and nobody knows that in the history of Austin. And as we're talking now about climate change, in 1983, 22 years before Al Gore's movie came out, we were leading the effort in shutting down fossil fuel plants, not just warning the world and going, hey, this is happening, somebody should do something about it. We were doing something about it right here in Austin, Texas. We were leading the charge on climate change.
That's so cool. I mean, it's so forward thinking, and Austin has always been sort of forward thinking.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
that's why we're hated by the rest of Texas.
Exactly. And see, that's the amazing thing when you have people like Fromholz and Bill Oliver and John Henry Falk who are willing to help and do this stuff.
Don't buy it, sell it.
Oh, you got some good nuke stuff there.
Yeah, didn't that came right out of that? You
It-
probably way involved in that.
Oh yeah, well that's why I ran for office in '79.
I thought that was,
to-
that I believe I remember you running on stopping the nuke.
and solar power, and and that's that was the only issue I knew anything about and so I had to get up there and kind of fake it on any other issues that anybody else wanted to talk about. But one of the things in that campaign, some odd stuff happened in that campaign, and I decided to run at the last minute, the last second actually. I was at Virginia's Cafe. Do you remember Virginia's there on South First Street? Yeah. Anyhow, I was a regular there. And I had written a letter to the
where
editor.
Barack goes for tacos
When he's in town?
yeah. Well, that once.
I'd written a letter to the editor about the nuke. And somebody was in there sitting at the counter reading the Statesman and they just read my letter. And I walked in the door and they said, well, if you're so into this, you should run for city council. I went, oh, city council? I said, I have a degree in political science. Maybe I'm qualified. So I looked it up, and you have to live in Austin for 6 months, and you have to be 18. So I was qualified. So, okay, I'm going to run for city council. This came on me all of a sudden. But I knew the issue I would run on. I felt strongly about it. And so I had to scramble around and find out what to do. I had to get registered and get signatures to get registered to, not registered to vote, but registered to run, qualified. And then, figured out, they go around and talk to all these groups. Well, I was scared to death of public speaking, so I had to learn how to do that and craft a 3-minute message, that you could deliver to all these audiences. And so that was a whole huge learning experience, but a couple odd things happened. One was that Michael Aiken, who had been the editor of the Daily Texan, and then he started the Austin Sun, that was the precursor to the Chronicle. With Jeffrey Nightbird. These were some radical dudes.
Yep.
They started the Austin Sun, and he, Michael Aiken, E-A-K-I-N, was writing stories every week about the nuke and about energy, and he was really on their case. And I was reading him, and he was informing me. Was a good source of information for me. Michael was in Houston, and got shot and killed in a parking lot in April. And the election was in May. So in the heat of this election, and not only was it a city council election, but there was an election on whether or not the city should partner with Houston Light and Power as part of this nuclear plant. So Michael was in Houston covering this story and got shot mysteriously in a Houston parking lot. They never figured out who did it. So a lot of people think, myself included, that he was assassinated because he was stirring up a lot of dust about the nuke. So it's like, I felt like, even though I'd never met him, I felt like, wow, they're shooting us down, you know? And I felt like, okay, I'm in this position, I'm running for office on this issue, I'm the next man up. I'm going to take his place and fight against the nuke. You know, that's what I have to do. And so I had that in kind of renewed vigor to do that. And then 3 Mile Island happened, right when the campaign was happening. And as it happened, China Syndrome, the movie,
Came out.
was in Austin right at that time. And so I was at a radio station giving an interview, and we just finished up the interview, and their teletype machine or whatever that is starts going off, click and click, click, you know. So the reporter I was talking to goes over and looks at it, and he said, look at this, 3 Mile Island. I said, oh, my God, this is happening. I said, can I have this? You know, he tears it off. And I said, yeah. He kind of gave it to me. So I went down to Kinko's and had 100 copies run off. And I went and stood outside of the movie theater where China Syndrome was. And when the crowds came out, I handed them this press release and go, look at this. Art is imitating life, or life is imitating art. And we got to do something about it. So anyhow, Michael Aiken was assassinated right during the campaign. 3 Mile Island blew up. China Syndrome was happening, but the people of Austin still passed it. They voted for it in that election.
And probably one of the most expensive boondoggles in Austin's history.
Oh, my God.
Oh,
6
no,
times.
you guys. Come on, don't you remember?
6 times
Don't
the
you
cost.
remember? It was
6 years delayed.
too cheap to meter, it's a guarantee. Too cheap to meter, why it's almost free. Too cheap to meter with complete safety. Accidents will happen, now quit hassling me. Cheap, 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 cheap.
Yeah, that one.
That one, yeah.
I took an electric meter to the council before that, introduced that song and placed it on the. I will be needing this. Thank you so much.
You put an electric meter on, yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm bringing this back.
Yeah, once the nuke's in, energy will be free. So
people ask about my trolling motor now, and I said it's 16% nuclear.
do you know, off the subject, but do you know that they're talking about making miniature generators, nuclear generators, about the size of a
domestic
Yeah.
home?
Well, I had thought that'd be the way to go instead of these bigger and bigger giant ones, to make a bread box. I call them bread box nukes. You know, so you just slide them in the bread box there in the kitchen. They're working on it.
That was not.
well. Bill, do you have other memorabilia? It looks like you got a lot of stuff over there.
Oh, hey, Bill, tell us about that one poster you got there. That one.
There's
The one under the hat.
Yeah, under the hat.
Oh, okay.
Under your Admiral
this
hat.
is about arts community contribute to Max. Here.
Tell them who. Oh, you tell them. My voice is wearing out. You tell them who's on that one. That's a great lineup.
Well, there's no year on it, as is the way these are. It was on April 21st at Liberty Lunch. It's an Austin Arts Community tribute to Max. I'm the MC. House band was Bill Carter Band with Charlie and Will Sexton.
Bill Carter? Yeah.
Yeah.
With Joe Ely, Alejandro Escovedo, Ian Moore, Jesse Taylor,
Holy moly.
Lost Week in Storyville, Mandy Mercier, Pork, Wajumbe, Liberty Literary Arts, Susan Bright, friends, Dance Arts, surprise guest, Visual Arts, Oh, there's Danny Garrett, Bill Nair, Michael Priest, Jim Franklin, Ray Gaetan.
Ray Gaetan, he did that poster, by the way.
No wonder.
Oh, and speaking of Danny, look, he did this T-shirt. Isn't that great?
Yes, it is.
This is from 1990. Oh, is this the
Wow,
one?
what a band. What a event.
Yeah, that's quite an event. Did we charge $10 for that one?
Yep.
Most of my events were $5 if you got it.
Liberty Lunch. That's
But this
that's the
one,
top.
with this stellar lineup, we tried to get $10.
That was tall cotton back
I
then.
don't know if anybody came, but oh, and Bill, where's that poster where I
bridge.
look like Teddy Roosevelt? You got to show him that one. I hope you can see that.
Yeah.
Did you bring that one? Guy Juke did this.
Oh, yeah. This guy?
Did this poster, and Bill showed it to me. He sent it to me via email just a couple of nights ago. Where did you have this one? Do you use this as a placemat on your kitchen table? I think there's a spaghetti stain, and
Yeah.
that
You
looks
sure
like,
that's not blood?
that,
No, I
loo-
think it is blood.
that looks like coffee there. Anyhow, Guy Juke, and I saw this on my email, and I had just seen a picture of Teddy Roosevelt on TV, on PBS, and I went, Guy Juke gave me the TR treatment on
He
that
did.
one.
He
Didn't
did,
I
yeah.
thought, that was really good of him. I love
worked.
it.
Well,
Well, so that's artwork by Guy Juke. Killer Bees, Austin Lounge Lizards, those guys played a lot of my shows. They did some birthday shows for me. They helped out. Here's Jimmy Gilmore again with Butch Hancock. Freddie Steady's Wild Country, that's Freddie Kirk. Ponty Bone and the Squeezed Tones, I sure miss him.
Yeah.
Aunt Pearl and Vera Carp from Greater Tuna. Al Dressen and Bill
Myself.
Halbert. Were you a duo with Al, or what'd you?
no.
You're
that
on the-
would have
just
been-
on the
that would
same
have been-
line?
That would have been good for me.
Yeah, well, it would have been an interesting combination.
It would have been. Yeah.
David Halley, Paul Piercy, that's your old buddy from the Otter Space Band,
Yep.
and the Jay Williams Tribe, Mandy Mercier, Uncle Walt Hyatt, and Champ Hood. I sure miss those guys. And many more surprises. This was at the back room out on East Riverside. That one's
That's
gone
rare.
too.
That was a rare venue for me to go into.
Yeah, that was pretty far out east. But that's another $10 show that we did with that lineup. Man, I love
Yeah.
all those people that helped me. You know, I just love musicians.
It's hard to not be a musician if you move to Austin. I mean, it's one of those things back
There's something
then.
in the air.
Yeah, it is. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a musician in Austin. Anyway,
Just what we need, another singer-songwriter.
oh, Steve Brooks did a house concert here, and he has a "Welcome to Austin" song.
Oh, yeah, I was here for that show.
You were here for that
was
show.
really good. Oh, that's the new Chamber of Commerce tune. He was going try to get the Chamber to adopt
We
that
got
one.
rattlesnakes and tarantulas. Anyway,
Now that would be a good one to open council with.
Let me ask Bill something about his musical career. Did you ever play at the Armadillo? I mean, we're
few times.
talking about all these dearly departed clubs and the Dillo was like chief amongst them. And you played there?
I play a few songs. I would play a song or two. In fact, it's on the album Barton Springs Eternal. Is
A live cut?
a live cut, and it's a solo and a break a string at the very end.
What?
So it's
Here,
a 6 and 5 string guitar.
you play both 6 and 5.
And that song, yeah. And I played several events, usually one song for and the content, the issue. But I played in the beer garden a few times, and then the last 2 Christmas bazaars actually played inside.
Wow. And here's a great quote from John Henry Falk, our friend.
Yeah.
Look what he said. What a splendid record this. He used splendid a lot too, you know. I mean, that was a good word for John Henry. I can hear
My honeys.
I can hear him say this. What a splendid record this is. Bill loves the earth dearly and writes and sings delightfully, witty songs to her in such a rousing, joyous fashion that it catches you up and whisks you along for a unique musical frolic. That's really nice that John Henry would say that about your stuff, man.
I always
I went out with him a few times when he ran for Congress. And
Did you?
Yeah,
Good for you.
It was a hoot, and we show up in Montgomery County over East Texas on I-45, and we go to this city, these little city halls or little towns, and there'd be nobody there. Nobody. This campaign was kind of brief, and but he was all right. He'd just go in and round people up, and it was hilarious.
Oh, he
on
was
a tour with him.
What a guy.
And it was during a TV series about World War II. And we were in a couple of motels, and that was on the TV, and he was just walking up saying, "And that's what everybody that was what we had to go through." He just couldn't turn him off. I was at his house one night, and I was doing the dishes. I broke a glass.
Oh no!
Doing dishes, just trying to. He got furious. I just wanted to watch them, not break them.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
Sorry, I just was on excited.
Now that's a different size of one of the first men of letters in Texas. I've not heard that size before.
I hadn't either till that moment.
Yeah.
just one glass.
Well, at that Lignite show where John Henry was the MC at Soap Creek down on South Congress, we were talking before the show, and he said something like, "Who's going to introduce me?" And I hadn't even thought about that, and so I said, "Well, nobody." I said,
Oops.
He said, "Well, you want me to introduce myself?" And I said, "Yeah, why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself?"
You need no introduction.
And that was a man who truly needs no introduction. And so that was unusual to him. I hadn't even thought about it, but he did. He got up in front of everybody, and everybody was talking, mumbling. He got up and stood there and called him to attention and introduced himself.
First gig I did with him was East Texas, Ned Fritz Wilderness Powwows, which did about 20 of those. And I brought the PA, he blew it out. He got up right up there, he got right on it. And I mean, these were the best speakers, but I was proud of them. And he blew out those speakers right away.
Right away.
And it was... I just loved it. It was just so great.
That's
he
hilarious.
I said, finally, somebody knows how to use a microphone. Get on it and talk now.
Sound man's nightmare. Boy, what'd you do after they blew the speaker?
That's funny.
Put her handle on it.
Yeah, I had a little gravel to it.
Well, John Henry grew up there in Green Pastures here in South Austin. A lot of people might not know that, but that big house over, in Live Oak.
Yeah, it's an extension of our street.
Yep.
Yeah.
With horse and buggy, and his father's was that sheriff, famous sheriff.
Yeah, that's where John Henry grew up and started his legendary career. And, Ken, did you know Ken? Ken Cook, he ran Green Pastures for a long time. Green Pastures is Maddie's now. He's got taken over a couple years ago, and I haven't been there yet. I used to go to Green Pastures like maybe once every couple of years.
Yeah,
a little pricey.
It's awful nice. But we took Esther's mom there one time. That was a good thing to do with that place. But anyhow, Ken was I got to know him a little bit. He's kind of active in local politics. And after I left the city council in 1998, the cops, Austin PD, got a grant from the Justice Department through Lloyd Doggett. Lloyd Doggett got him a grant to try to clean up the avenue, South Congress. And, Green Pasture sign is right out there in South Congress next to the porno theater.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So they never really liked that juxtaposition that much, So when I started to work on that project, because the cops hired me to be the community liaison and work with the neighborhoods and the avenue merchants to clean up the street and get rid of the porn theater, that's one of the first things we did. And then the sex workers that went along with it, the drugs that went along with them. So that was how all that started back in 98. And so I had that job for a couple of years. And if you ever go down to South Congress now, you can see the difference. Some people like it, some people don't. Preferred the prostitutes and the porn. But anyhow, I think it's a vast improvement. But anyhow, Ken at Green Pastures was so impressed and relieved and happy that the theater was gone, that his sign wasn't out there right next to the
porno theater.
That he threw a big party for us. And the Avenue Merchants and Lloyd Doggett came, and the police chief came, and he had a big party for us at Green Pastures and really rolled out the red carpet and had all kinds
I
of...
bet that was a good time.
Oh, it was all kinds of great food, and he was
Peacocks.
just so appreciative. Anyhow, that was a little sidebar from John Henry Falk and his his ancestral home there.
Well, and a
Green
sidebar to
Pastures.
that is it moved everybody south of Ben White. All the hookers south of Ben White for a while.
For a while. And then, up north, too. A bunch of them went up north. I don't know if they still do that, do they?
I didn't have
that-
a database on that. I don't,
Is that,
I just went down South Congress and
that was scary.
people,
Interesting.
Main Street. Main
People
Street,
complain to me about having to drive out to the highway. That's where the porno theater... the porno
man.
theater moved out there, and people were mad at me about that.
oh, that's funny.
I was disappointed that building didn't become a cooler theater. You know.
Oh,
It was at
Bill,
the
don't
edge.
get me started on
Yeah,
that.
oh,
You
oh.
want to get me started?
No, I go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
Until
He
you
got
tried
me
to.
started.
You tried
Okay,
to.
well, anyhow, so we're going to get the porn people out of there because it's for sale.
Yeah, it's a
You know,
theater.
there's the First Amendment thing. You can't force them out, because it's free speech. But they're right there by the junior high school. and
Yep.
There's St. Ignatius.
St.
and
Ignatius,
It's
yeah.
just not the best spot for a porn theater. Sorry. So anyhow, the building is for sale. Okay, so we want to get somebody to buy it. So I got my old friend Henry Benedict, who supported my early campaigns. And I got Henry to buy the building.
Oh.
And he did it. And the thing is, it'd been grandfathered. With the grandfather clause, if you take it out of that use for which it's grandfathered for something like 60 days, maybe 30 days, then the grandfather goes away. So that's what Henry did. He bought the building and got the theater to move out. So the porn feature went away that was attached to that building. And so it could be ready for anything. So I talked to the city manager and some city council members about, why don't you buy that building from Henry? And it'd be a jewel of a theater. It's a sister theater to the State
tower?
Theater downtown.
State.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it was, the first theater south of the river. It was very historic. People saw the Sound of Music there and all kinds of, family-oriented films there. It was really a shame that it had been allowed to degenerate, I think, into that use. But anyhow, so it was like, I think Henry wanted $250,000 for it, and the city wouldn't come up with the money for that.
A trailer's worth that now.
I know, and the city, and at the time, and I have a complaint about this. Don't get me started on this, but Kirk Watson was the mayor at the time. And they were spending tens of millions of dollars on 2nd Street downtown, trying to crank that up into something. They were subsidizing people's leases. They were getting businesses to move down from Dallas to move into that. And spending tens of millions of dollars, and we're trying to get them to spend $250,000 on South Congress. Well, I worked at the theater when it was a porno theater.
Oh, you did? Well, now there's an interesting chapter.
Just before Flowers?
It was after Flowers, in fact. Jim Spector, Jim?
Oh my! May he rest in
Jim
peace.
Spector. Yeah, may he rest in peace. He's a
Apparently I
musician, and he had a day job selling tickets at the theater and making popcorn.
I did not know that.
And one day he couldn't make
seem to
it,
go together.
so he called me up and said, "Hey, can you take my shift at the theater?"
Oh.
And I was right there in the neighborhood, so he showed me how to run the popcorn. He said, "You get to eat all the popcorn you want."
Resume
And-
on him.
And,
Yeah.
and sit there in the window and sell tickets and make popcorn one day.
Wow. Well, that's interesting. All those little spin-offs from that theater.
There's a base there. Yeah.
So do
Should I tell you about the theater? I went there after started working with the cops, so the cops were putting the squeeze on the theater owners, try to put a little heat on them to move. So they did a
that
raid.
theater, yeah.
They did a raid on it, and they went in there with their ultraviolet lights.
oh God.
Enough said. Okay.
Popcorn?
Enough said.
Ooh.
On the ceiling. How could it be on the ceiling? Okay.
It can. Do we want?
You might want to cut that out.
Burn it down.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Those good parts will be in there. Do we need to go over anything else? Have we covered everything you came to cover?
Let me check my notes. Bill, what do you think? Do you want to read the rest of your album cover here?
No, I've read it.
Did you? I really love that quote that is a classic piece of Austin history. John Henry Falk, all those great musicians, and Michael Priest artwork. I mean, in these campaigns, something we were conscious of, and we hired Juke, Danny Garrett, Franklin. We hired all those Armadillo artists and a bunch of other artists. We were conscious that we were creating a body of work, a body of art.
Right.
All these posters, like poster art. And we actually paid, in most cases, I think, these artists, and we wanted to, contribute to them. They were helping us. But we were conscious that we were, creating a body of art that would hopefully someday be part of somebody's archives.
The back
thank you, David.
The back of this album
this
is no
opportunity.
slouch either.
You're most
That was,
welcome.
Elaine Hooser's calligraphy and actual scientific, field
Now, whose is that?
biology. Elaine Hooser, who I was with for those years,
Wow.
and Scott Newton did the
Scott
photo.
Newton?
No, not Scott Newton.
Van Osdale.
Yeah.
Van Osdale. Right.
The Austin Community College Biology Department's on the Snail Darter March reading the endangered species roll call.
We're about to actually battery is what we're about to run out of.
I was going to say,
So-
tape.
So
What?
Thank you. Bless you, child. No, I felt so good. I liked it.
I thought I was having a flashback.
Was it 2-inch? Is it?
I'm so glad I was never a recording engineer during tape. One of our clients worked in a
Razor blades.
studio when it was all tape, and boy.
So how do we wrap up?
Well, I was thinking maybe a song. How much time do we have?
Perfect.
Whoa.
Okay.
Well,
A short little hysterically funny song. Now I've got the
got
pressure on
any?
him.
Oh,
got one like
let's try well, the runoff forced them to come up with second $500,000. The Fat Cat started making tracks to make friends with $1 Million Max. And we are here to help the man who forced some fools to understand that money isn't always power and honor has a finer hour. Max is living history of a different kind of victory. The system's stuck with what it lacks, but we've got $1 Million Max.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all of your service. Thank you for all of your efforts to protect our water.
Yeah.
We need many, many more younger Maxes and Bills.
Yeah. Hey, and Bill, thanks for helping me out doing this today. That was a lot of fun. And David, thanks for the opportunity to share this with posterity.
It's my pleasure. Thank you all both.